again, everyone, for joining us. Um, we have a packed agenda, and we had a ton of folks that have registered. So we're going to go ahead and get started with housekeeping. So, it's pretty standard these days. Thank you again for joining us. And for those of you who have joined us, please mute your microphone to increase the effectiveness of today's presentation. And then just to be aware, you may not have seen the pop-up message, but this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded on our HCD YouTube page in the next couple of days. And we'll also send this out to all of you directly. So this is also a way of saying that if you don't want to have to take notes the entire time, we will be sending you the slide deck and you'll have access to the recording as well. You can also send your questions into the chat box, which is to the right. And I'm going to put a quick hello to everyone message here so you can see where it's at for those of you that aren't familiar with Teams. So I just said hi to everyone, 70 plus strong that have joined us so far. As we're going through the presentation, please put your questions into the chat. And one of our team members, Olivia Christina Bush, will be responding to your questions as best as she can in real time. Please allow some grace because I think right now there's, well, I know right now there's one of her, and I think there's over 80 of you that have registered. So we've had almost 300 people register, and I'm seeing there's already 73 folks in the meeting. So she's going to do her best to answer your questions in the chat in real time. For those of you that may have questions after the fact, please email them to this mailbox. Those of you that are joining us via the phone, you can email questions after today's webinar to hsfdp@houstontx.gov by close of business this week for our first FAQ round 1. And what we mean by that is we are going to be compiling all your questions, many of which may be similar depending on how, what we get in our mailbox and in this chat tonight. And then we will, whatever we get by close of business, we'll put that into the first FAQ round. You can send us questions after that. It's just that those questions may not be addressed until we go a little further down to round 2. And that's just that way we know where to start. And that way we'll also email everyone who's attending tonight and registered that first round. So we just have to have some time where we actually start answering your FAQs. And also, as a reminder, it takes us about 2 or 3 business days to get the recording out. So that's when you can expect the first email from us is for this recording and for this PowerPoint presentation within the next 2 or 3 business days. And just to be clear, because we have so many people that have registered, right now we're over 80 in the chat room. We will be answering questions exclusively through that chat and through that mailbox tonight. With that, let's go ahead and get started with today's agenda. For those of you that joined us for prior community meetings, bullet point 1 is going to look a little similar to what you've already heard in the past, but we recognize that there's a lot more attendance or registrations this time around, so we want to make sure that everyone comes in understanding the project background and the upcoming development opportunity under this particular program. Then we're going to recap the community engagement period, how we engage with the Stella Link community, and what we heard from all of you. And then finally, this will be brand new information for everyone on the call, our next steps, how your feedback shaped the city's request for development proposals, or the technical term is NOFA for Notice of Funding Availability. And we'll also go a little bit into the home buyer process that will take place over the next year. We're going to go ahead and get started. And just put a message in the chat. Don or Olivia, if you can put a message in the chat for Dee Dee so she can read it. If she's able to unmute herself, she can jump right in and present her comments. So I ask one of you all to put that in the chat as I navigate this presentation. So the project background, again, this will be very familiar to those of you that have joined us for one of our prior 3 community meetings. But again, we're at over 80 folks right now, with more still coming in. This particular development is under the Harvey Single Family Development Program, which had 3 key aims. On top of that list is home ownership, specifically creating new attainable home ownership opportunities for Houstonians that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Item 2 here is to meet the community's needs. So not only new attainable home ownership, but making sure those homes match the needs of the current residents where developments are taking place. And then item 3, for a variety of incomes, making sure that folks throughout the different income scales that are able to actually purchase and maintain those attainable home options, making sure that everyone has an option to become a homeowner that is working towards that goal. And I think Dee Dee may have been able to resolve the technical issues. Dee Dee, if so, do you want to try to unmute yourself and we can take a quick pause and you can go do your introduction?
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I want to thank the Houston Housing and Community Development Department, Director Miller and staff, Jeremiah, and also the District K residents who are all joining us this evening, as well as the District K staff. Thank you all for joining. I am here on behalf of Vice Mayor Pro Tem. She sends her regrets. She's not able to attend due to a schedule conflict. But again, want to extend her thanks for everyone who have joined in to hear a recap of this development, and also to get a timeline and then also get some questions answered. And again, we thank the Houston Housing and Community Development Department for holding this virtual meeting for the community. I know that you've already gone over, you started the agenda, Jeremy. So again, if you just go ahead and proceed, we're just looking forward to the information and what's to come with this development. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dee Dee, and thank you for reminding me that I forgot to take my camera off well, actually just turn it on. But to get back to the project development itself, again, for those of you that are joining us perhaps for the first time tonight, this is and I'm getting just a bunch of messages here. So what we're looking at is the actual site of the development itself, which is at 10301 Stella Link. And it's this area, excuse me, highlighted that I'm currently very badly coloring in. I did not do very well in kindergarten, my handwriting or my coloring.
Excuse me,
that particular
Jeremiah.
development.
Hello, Jeremiah.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's just me. I don't see a thing on the screen if you're showing anything, and there is no chat box on my controls.
Same here. My name is Bobby, and I don't see it either.
Also no chat.
I can see screen and chat.
Okay, now I
Okay, it sounds like there's some folks with technical issues. What I recommend sometimes with Teams, unfortunately, is that it's as simple as logging in and logging out. And as a reminder, we will, if that does not seem to resolve the issues, because I promise I'm not a tech guru, especially now with Microsoft Teams, I recommend logging in, logging out of Teams, logging back in. And if that doesn't correct the issue, we'll do our best to describe the slides as we're going through them. We'll make sure to do that more intentionally. And then if that does not work, again, we will present this entire presentation, the recording of it afterwards. With that said, going back to the development site itself. So this is located at 10301 Stella Link, as I mentioned. Very poorly highlighted in yellow, and I'm not sure why spasm there, why there's that cross across the whole thing, but it's highlighted in yellow with the red outline outside of it. It's along Stella Link Road, along also Willow Bend Avenue and Highway 90, and it's approximately 12.2 acres. We're projecting, and these are subject to due diligence. These numbers are not final. Up to 194 total homes, 99 of which will be sold at attainable home rate prices. This is a draft rendering from one of our consultants. Again, I want to highly emphasize the term draft. None of these, this is not finalized, and it won't be finalized until multiple months down the road, until a developer competition and even afterwards has happened. But this is just one vision of what that development at Stella Link and that property could look like. So going back to our previous time together, our engagement process, just recapping that, and then we're going to talk about how we engage with the community what your comments are like, and how they have been summarized. So we started in March with a community leaders focus group, and then actually items 2 and 3 happened simultaneously. We had an open public community engagement process that began in March and went through May 31st. That coincided with 2 hybrid community meetings and 1 virtual meeting like tonight. And it also had a virtual online component where the community can leave their feedback 24/7 on our social pinpoint site. And at those meetings, what we promised to you is that your community engagement would be uh, collected, summarized, and eventually put into the notice of funding availability for developers to respond to. And before we get to that point, we also promised we would have a recap session of what those comments look like, which is the primary purpose of why we're here tonight, which is item number 4 with that green box. So moving on, this is a high-level summary of what we heard from everyone. And give me a second, everyone. Okay, so again, this is a high-level summary of what we heard from all of you, um, and in descending order. So essentially, the top items are the items we heard the most comments on. And as we're gonna go over the next few slides, what that looked like with verbatim commentary from what we heard from you in those meetings and online, um, and through our social pinpoint tool. These were again, uh, sometimes things overlap, sometimes things are very easy to classify, but in general, this are the key things we heard from you. Number one, actually the top 2 are right by each other in terms of what were most popular, what we heard the most from you. We heard over 200 comments, almost 300. I think we're at 295 uh, that went across these themes in general. So that top theme, green spaces, parks, and trees. Essentially, what we heard from you is that you want at this development intentionally designed green spaces that will promote community gatherings and that uh, will help the community grow together through shared amenities. We also heard a lot about trees along walking and biking trails, so that way you can stay shaded as you move through within the community, and also intentionality on making sure those children's playgrounds are shaded as well. Right after that, again, this is like 1A, 1B, was a lot of different ideas for the home designs themselves. So kind of within that theme, we heard a lot about making sure that individuality was preserved within the townhomes and individual home ownership. So we heard a lot about yards, and specifically comments about yards being a sign of that individuality, that home ownership. We heard a lot about different design facade colors and porches, places that you can consider your own at your home. We heard a little bit about the specific types of homes, so ranch style, brick, or modern design. But we also heard a lot about trees, again, that overlap between green space and trees, but specifically comments about making sure trees are on that individual lot where your home's at. So again, you can kind of see where key themes overlap there. Trees came up a lot in those first 2 spaces. We also heard in terms of neighborhood mobility that you wanted alternatives to 4-wheel vehicles on your within the community, right? So strong connections to walking and biking. We also heard a lot of comments about thoughtful traffic mitigation, speed bumps, um, making sure walking places, the city initiative was implemented throughout the development. And then towards the end, kind of a little bit lower in terms of actual specific comments, we heard a lot about safety. And those kind of fall into 2 general buckets, making sure that safety is enhanced through gating and fences, which is a little bit different. We heard some comments on an individuality about fences to promote individuality. These were more comments about making sure fences enhance safety. And we also saw quite a few comments about making sure public areas or sidewalks are very well lit. And we also heard overwhelming support. As you may remember, on our online social pinpoint tool, there's a survey question about homeowner associations. We heard overwhelming support from the community that you do want an HOA and that Stella Link development. So on this slide, you're going to see verbatim. It may have, if it was part of a longer comment, I may have pulled the specific section that comment related to. Sometimes people left a paragraph that hit multiple key themes, but otherwise, this is verbatim what we heard from you in terms of particular key theme: green space, parks, and trees. And this is also, again, feedback that will be valuable for developers as they begin crafting their application. So here you'll see specific comments like the first comment here about making sure playgrounds are similar to Levy Park. So like I mentioned, very specific comment about Levy Park, but then you're going to see a bunch of other comments about, again, that intentionality around green space that children can play in. A lot of specific comments about the specific types of trees that you all want to see in green space, which I found very interesting. A couple of thoughts about water features like Discovery Park. Again, the more specific feedback, the more helpful that will be for the developers as they sit through and think through their proposal. And again, a lot of comments about biking trails. In terms of home design, you'll see here that top comment that I mentioned about how trees kind of goes against, not against, but is aligned with multiple key themes. Here in this case, that specific comment mentioned trees, but again, per property rather than around green spaces. The second comment, again, around trees, was making sure that there's a lot of energy saver trees was the terminology used there. Here you'll see that third comment, wrought iron fence, not for safety, but here specifically that sense of individuality, that sense of home ownership. But you also wanted places to convene like your porches, that sort of thing, where you could speak to your neighbors, right? And again, the rest of those comments down below, you're going to see a bunch of comments in different ways about the individuality. You wanted townhomes that weren't necessarily connected to one another with some space in between. You wanted different colors and design facades and different yard options as well. And here in mobility, you'll see that first comment here was a thoughtful comment about intentionally including elements of walkable places and livable places, making sure that when you're on your feet or on your bike, that it's a development that you want to live in, that you can walk around in. A lot of the other comments down here you can see specifically relate to traffic mitigation, making sure the flow of traffic is safe for a lot of comments around safe for my children, safe for me to walk around, safe for me to connect to the trails that I want to see in the development. And I say I metaphorically, those were the comments we were hearing in regards to mobility. And here I grouped these two together, key themes, safety and HOA. Again, because the themes here, the comments here are very similar to one another. Safety, we only really received two different types of comments, which are reflected here, making sure that the fence skating can help promote that sense of security, and also making sure that the public areas are really well lit. And again, universal ask for home ownership association. So there's a lot of comments that were yes comments in that vote. I don't think we received a single no. And then there's a lot of extra comments like this here, all kind of fit in the same themes and making sure the HOAs are make sure that the amenities are kept well, and that and some other specific restrictions that folks wanted to see. So that's a high-level summary of what we heard from you over basically almost a 2.5 to 3 month period, both online and in person. And now we want to transition to talking about next steps. Again, the purpose of all that was to take that information we just went through, summarize it at a high level for developers to respond to. They're going to have access to that, and they're going to have access to your specific comments, so they can, as they walk through and design the proposal, they'll be able to implement what we heard from you into that site plan, into that NOFA application. So speaking of which, those next steps, again, number one here we already went through. That's what we've been going through, incorporating your feedback into that notice of funding availability, which we are intending to release on September 30th, which is the end of this month. Again, all dates on these slides are subject to change, but that is a date that we are feeling pretty good about. And that will allow us to have that open competition through the notice of funding availability and select a developer in December of 2023. At which point, if things again go smoothly, construction can begin as soon as April 2023, with the intention of beginning to sell homes to residents at Stella Link development January of 2024. Just kind of a summary. This is a slide that folks have seen before that have been able to join us. The way the program model works is again that 194 total homes. That is a up to number. We won't know the total number until after the developer competition is over. But the way the Harvey Single Family Development Program is set up, 49% of those homes will be sold at market rate. And so if you're looking to purchase one of those homes, you'll go through the traditional home buyer process. You'll get your 30-year fixed rate mortgage from a third-party lender, work with your realtor and other folks to buy a home, and that's represented on that top line. If you are looking to buy one of the 51% of the homes that are at that attainable rate, you'll also secure your own 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and then you will go through the steps outlined below on the diverging path. So if you were impacted by Hurricane Harvey, which in this case means lived in the city of Houston on the date Hurricane Harvey hit, and earn up to 80% area median income, you're able to move forward in the application process. So you'll submit those documentations to the city, and we have a chart on what that looks like on the next slide. In exchange for the assistance for that attainable rate home, you will agree to a 5-year secondary lien on your home, but otherwise you will own that home. So the city's investment is to help bridge that affordability gap between the 30-year fixed rate mortgage on one hand that you're able to secure, and then the difference between the price of that home, whatever the market rate is at that point in time. So that 80% area median income is set yearly by HUD, and we will have links to our website on what that looks like. That will likely be updated by HUD, typically May, June timeframe. So in terms of what that looks like, going through the income certification process to the city, we've launched optional. It says number 1, but it's an optional new home buyer interest survey. I'll show you where to get to that in just a minute, and you'll be able to input your information there, your contact information, just a little bit of information from you, like your name, your email address, the best way to get a hold of you. And this is not the only development that the city is helping make new construction, new affordable, disaster resilient, energy efficient homes available. We have a list there that you can select options for. And when those homes are almost ready for sale, if you fill out that survey, we will let you know that homes at that development are ready for sale. We're about to be ready for sale, and direct you to our universal application, home buyer application, which is step 2 here. That's going to be its own webinar. That's going to be a detailed webinar walking folks through that process when that's ready. But there won't be, if you do sign up for the home buyer interest survey, you'll know how to get to that universal home application as well. You will submit your documentation to a city website that will be launching in the next month or two. And that's step 3, where the city will do that income certification, make sure you're eligible, make sure you hit all the program criteria, which again, we'll have its own webinar for. And if you meet those eligibility and program criteria, or if you don't, between steps 3 and 4, our staff will reach out to you and let you know, hey, we may need form A, B, and C, or you uploaded the wrong form into section C, whatever the case may be. We will contact you to help you walk through fixing errors on your application. Or if you are eligible at that point, you will receive a pre-qualification letter, which lets you know you have met our program criteria.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, we're gonna go through this entire presentation. We're almost done, and we're answering questions via the chat as well. So step 5, the 66% home completion. That's the point where if you've gotten that pre-qualification letter, at this point you've long ago gotten your fixed rate mortgage. When homes are 66% complete, our staff will connect you with the developer to go and schedule your home design meeting. So you'll be able to give input onto that last step for that particular home. And when homes are ready for sale, that's step 6, the point we all want to see, the loan closing and key exchange. I want to just remind everyone again that this is for the 51% that are for Houstonians impacted by Hurricane Harvey. The other 49%, you will go through the traditional home buyer process directly with the developer. And winding down, we're getting to the end of the presentation. Wanted to give you a few resources. As I mentioned earlier, this is not the only development that the city is involved in right now. That first link, HoustonTX.gov/housing/homes/new, is a list of all the developments. It has information about the neighborhood, the developer, the number of homes, and key amenities. So I'm going to walk you through that in just a second so you can see what that looks like. We highly recommend you take a look at that site. Stella Link is one of those sites there. To the right, you're going to see that home buyer interest survey flyer, um, the direct link to that survey that I mentioned, and I'll show you where that's at on the website. If you don't want to write this down, bit.ly/HCD new homes for sale. That's that survey that I mentioned where you can let us know which developments, more than one, you're interested in. And if you have specific questions about the home buyer process, this is a different email, newhomebuyer@houstontx.gov. So if it's for any of the other developments or you have questions about what eligibility looks like, you can go ahead and get to that, shoot us an email there, and we'll know that you have a specific question about the home buyer process. Just two more slides, and we'll walk you through all that. But just a couple of things from some colleagues at HCD. One of our colleagues put together a fantastic free webinar earlier this year called 360 Road Home Ownership. The link of that is right here. It was really long, so I just hyperlinked it. Again, we'll send this presentation to you in 2 or 3 days. But it was a series of 4 really great free webinars along the home ownership journey. So the first webinar was Credit 101. The second was around building the team to help you buy a home. The third was around what to expect when purchasing a home. And then number 4, which is vital for folks who may have not owned a home before, housing and tune-ups. Essentially, how do you maintain your home? Make sure, if everything you can do to make sure your home stays maintained. So that's a free webinar series that's already occurred. That link is there. If any of these subjects interest you, I highly recommend you check that out. Additionally, upcoming some webinars from the same team that put that together. A new webinar series called Building Communities and Strengthening Families. It's an empowerment series webinar. The next one, that's that first slide. I'm sorry, that first picture is talking about the series in general. The first webinar in the series will be about naturalization process. So it'll be in English and Spanish. That's what those flyers in orange to the right are for. And I believe that's next week, if I recall. So that is going to be something to check out. If that subject matter doesn't pertain to you, next month they're going to do within the same webinar series, financial literacy based on your generation. So it'll be a separate webinar based on kind of your age range. So they have a financial literacy webinar set up for baby boomers, a separate one set up for Gen X, and then a separate one for millennials. So that would be weekly throughout the month of October. So again, maybe today you aren't quite ready for home ownership, but there's, as you saw on that other slide, there's plenty of time to get ready. So these are free resources from the team, not our particular team, but from some of our colleagues in HCD. They put a lot of work into it. They get a bunch of great guest speakers, so I highly recommend you check them out if the content interests you, the subject matter interests you. And with that, if you give me just 1 second, I'm going to show you what some of these websites look like. So I'm going to be turning to my other monitor here as I navigate through that, which is why I'll be turning my head. So we should be looking at a live page right here, the new homes for sale page. The new home buyer interest survey that I mentioned is right here. And we're going to click on that in just 1 second. But here, as I mentioned, you can learn more about each one of our developments that we are financing for new home construction, Stella Link included, and then some other developments that we have throughout the city as well. But if you click on the Stella Link site, this will probably look familiar to most of you who've joined us before in the past. Again, as I mentioned, you'll have more information about each development here. And we'll update this after today with some more relevant timeline information. And as we go through the timeline, construction timeline, update the site with pictures and other information like that. So again, this new homes for sale website is your resource if you're looking to buy a home in the city of Houston, affordable for market rate. Scrolling back to the top, our new home buyer interest survey, again, really straightforward. Just waiting for it to load. It can take a second. The first section is just going to be your general contact information. A little bit should be very familiar. We ask just so we know what kind of programming might be helpful for everyone, where you are on the home buyer preparedness scale. So some folks may just be dipping their toes, starting to look around. Others may have taken the HUD home buyer education course, wherever the case may be. So we can get a kind of get a feel of where everyone's at. And then here's the section that I mentioned. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit, make it easier to see. At the very bottom, you can select from those developments with our estimated timeline of when homes are ready for pre-sale. So if you're interested in the Stella Link development, that's this right here. And you can see we're projecting homes being ready for sale maybe that winter 2023 timeframe. We will email you when homes are ready for pre-sale so you can begin going through the application process, which is not live yet. But you can select multiple sites. So if you're just really interested in all of our developments, you can select all or any combination. Once you hit submit, we'll have your information. And once we know these developments are ready for sale, we will email you about whichever ones you have selected. So even if you aren't looking for a home right now, maybe you know someone that is, definitely send them to this link, both the new homes for sale webpage and the new home buyer interest survey. So with that, that takes us to the end of the presentation. As I mentioned, it's our goal to get this out to you in the next 2 to 3 business days, the recording and the PowerPoint presentation. I saw a ton of questions in the chat. Please, you can keep putting those questions in the chat. Also, you can send them via that, and Olivia, if you can put the Harvey mailbox in there again, hsfdp@houstonpx.gov. We are going to be taking those questions through Friday for the first round of the FAQ. As a reminder, any questions after that, we will still answer. It's just that we need to have some sort of cutoff point so that way we can get that FAQ put together and sent out to everyone who registered or attended tonight in a reasonable, timely fashion, because we're going to keep getting questions, I'm sure. So that, again, takes us to the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone who's joined us tonight, and we will be in touch when we have our next development milestone. Everyone have a great rest of your evening.